I was looking for somebody to play the Hulk. We talked to Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was busy doing Conan at the time, and he suggested we talk to Louis Ferrigno. And I met with Louis, and he was a very sweet guy, had absolutely no acting experience at all. You know, and I was concerned about being able to make that happen. So I sort of kept Lou in my hip pocket, but I decided to try to go with Richard Kiel, who later on would play Jaws in the James Bond movie. Dick is 7'5", is massive, and is an actor. And we actually filmed a week with Dick, but as we sat in the dailies, more and more it just became apparent that this was not the right image for the Hulk.
It was someone who had the height, but not the bulk and not the presence. Tall and thin just didn't cut it. And lumbering. It was just too much like, the Abominable Snowman.
My daughter, who was about 7 at the time or so, Kenny asked if I'd bring her to the rushes, the dailies. And he showed film of Lou as the Hulk and someone else. And he wanted her opinion. And she liked Lou better. I don't know. I'm sure that's not the only reason he got the job.
Lou didn't have the height, but Lou had the bulk. And Lou had the eyes. He had very sweet eyes, even though we had to put white contacts in them. And he had a gentleness about him. So you paint him green and you put on the prosthesis and you do all that stuff, but there's still a quality that comes through from him.
I went back to Lou and I brought him in and we did some improvisation stuff together to try to see if I could get a performance out of him. And he did okay. Not great, but okay. But Louis was an impassioned guy that I felt had the inside stuff to make it happen. I mean, here's a kid that had made himself into this, hugely amazing muscle man. And I got to thinking, well, if he's got the inner strength and fortitude and passion to do that, then I bet I can make this work. And there are some scenes in Hulk that still choke me up. And Lou did a really, really wonderful job and got better and better as the show went on.
I don't think at the time I appreciated what a tough gig it was for Lou. That must have been really hard, to come out, with the ripped jeans and with the crazy wig.
I wouldn't want to be painted in that green makeup every time he came. I mean, it was a chore.
The contacts, I think, were difficult for both of them. I mean, he had to wear his for much longer. Bixby could wear his for a shot and take him out.
In those days, contact lenses were technologically primitive and really tough to wear, and they had the color to them.
Lou, for some reason, either it didn't bother him that much or he suffered in silence.
When he was walking around being Lou, people would talk to him. When he was made up as the Hulk, they wouldn't talk to him. He didn't seem human in a way. So that bothered him because he spent the entire day in makeup and felt invisible in a lot of ways, felt that, he was treated as though he couldn't understand and he couldn't communicate. And it wasn't intentional, but I don't think he was wrong. I don't think he was wrong to feel that way. I think there was a sense of, how can you communicate with him? He's green and he's huge.
We went down to the desert in Brawley, but it was August in the desert. And it was a fascinating experience for all of us. It was 120 degrees. The sand temperature was 160 degrees. And because of the heat, Lou's makeup kept separating. Instead of being green, he'd be blue and yellow. It was in streaks. He was like this little rainbow of blue and yellow. And what the makeup people would have to do is, just before we would shoot each take, they'd have to run in and rub him down real quick to smear the blue and the yellow back together, and that would make green just long enough for us to take the shot.
Lou had expressed, at least to me, that he really wanted to try acting. Not just be an action-type actor.
Lou began to get the bug of he wanted to do a speaking role. The challenge with Lou was that he was mostly deaf. I mean, he was hard of hearing, but it was beyond hard of hearing. It was a condition from childhood. It was obvious that the way to best serve him so that he could come off as good as possible was to make the role as close to his own life. I wrote King of the Beach, and it was very, very satisfying for me because I knew that I was touching something important to him. He came in to me after he'd read the script, and he was in tears, and he said, "It's like you're inside my head." There was a scene in a locker room where he talks to David Banner.
If I go through with the competition, South Diamond will own me.
But only as a professional bodybuilder.
It was really lovely, and I'm very, very proud of it, and I was proud of him.
When I was doing The Bionic Woman, I did a show called Return of Bigfoot, and I found Ted Cassidy, who was a wonderful actor, and I went to Ted and I said, would you do the voice for me of the Incredible Hulk? I needed a deep voice, and on the dubbing stage we made it even deeper by changing the pitch so that it went even lower than Ted. And at the same time I said, Ted, would you narrate the main title for me as well?
Dr. David Banner, physician, scientist, searching for a way to tap into the hidden strengths that all humans have.
Then, unfortunately, when Ted was 46 in 1979, he died. And I remember them asking, do you still want his voice in the main title? And I said, absolutely. Don't change it. And we kept it throughout the run of the series. And my friend Charlie Napier, who is an actor whose face you would recognize in an instant, a wonderful character actor who's also got a very deep voice, Charlie came in and did the Hulk for me after that.
I know my daughter, as a child watcher, she couldn't wait to see the Hulk out. I mean, every week, that's what she wanted to see. And she always wanted to know. She would get so involved in it, why didn't the underpants rip?
The metamorphoses that we had to do from Bix to Lou were frustrating. Frustrating because in those days we didn't have the computer morphing technology that we have now.
Every week it was like, okay, how is he? We got to figure out 2 Hulk outs every week for 22 episodes. Sometimes I got a little silly trying to, come up with the Hulk outs to make them work. And also, they had to be clever, they had to be creative, they had to be story relevant.
There was a list in everybody's office of possible Hulk outs, and I remember that became an obsession, is thinking of Hulk outs that would fit in stories. And sometimes you would get an idea for a Hulk out and build the characters around that.
I once came up with an idea out of desperation. We'll put Bill Bixby on skis, and he's skiing down a slope, and he's going to hit a tree, and he hulks out. Well, it's before computer graphics and whatever, and it's like, I don't know how we shoot it, but it's an idea. Obviously, it was never done.
The transitions into the Hulk, of course, began with the white eyes. And I came up with that trigger effect because I wanted to be able to have a place where the audience knew they were at a point of no return. Once the audience saw the white eyes, we knew there was no going back to Dr. David Banner. The Hulk was about to come out the other side. And part of the reason I did that was because it gave me the dramatic ability to see the white eyes and then to have Bixby get thrown in a closet. And we knew who was coming out of the closet, but we didn't have to see the whole transition. There were other times when we wanted to see the physical transformation from small, meek Bix into great, big, beefy Lou. We tried all kinds of different things, and finally I said, look, I think the thing to do is just to get shirts that are too small for Lou and squeeze them tight on his back, weaken the fabric, so that as Lou tightened up, we could make that rip go up his back. And then we would look for different ways to do it. I remember throwing challenges to the associate producers and the insert crews where we'd write things like, his feet expands out of his shoes. Well, how do you do that? I'd go, I don't know, you figure it out. And sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. So the transformations were something that the audience always watched for, but which we as creators always tried to duck as much as we could, because really I just knew that I couldn't do them as well as I'd like to. I mean, nowadays, of course, with CGI and morphing technology, it would be so easy to do it.